Later saying good night.
That should be at the end.
It should be. It should be.
But you said hello. Does it really say hello? Does it say hello and then farewell?
I don't know. I don't know.
Oh, well, we're going to talk about dreams.
Let's do it.
All right.
I'm ready.
So let's look at some things about dreams this time. This actually is our last podcast of the year. And as the announcement's going to come up later in the podcast.
Yes.
Our last podcast is Dream Stories.
Yes.
So why don't we talk about where dreams come from and the history and how we've gotten to this idea of valuing dreams, and just sort of sum up all that we've done for 3 years on dreams with their value.
Okay. That sounds good. Now, I just heard a few whimpers and cries like, oh, no.
Well, we're not ending.
Well, let's
wait on that.
Hold on,
you got to listen all the way through the podcast
yeah.
to get the whole story.
Yeah.
So we're actually expanding. Okay. No more.
Okay.
It's just the little teasers.
Yeah.
We've been doing that for a month now.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I would just like to say, first of all, Michael, this could be a 2-part thing.
Well, and when I say it's our last episode, if it's a 2-part episode, if it turns out to be, then it will still be our last. But,
yes.
But we weren't planning on recording between Christmas and New Year.
Yeah.
So
okay.
if we record,
this could be
longer,
a 2-part,
right?
Because I think we could. Because I'm just sitting here thinking about how we got started doing this.
Yeah.
Do you remember where we were?
I don't.
We were at Maplewood.
Our house that was on the creek bank.
Yes, and you had been away on a trip, and while you were gone, your children
there was a big fight.
Yes, there was. Noah and I were talking about this last night.
Yeah.
So we had this meeting because you were in the Mully Grubs, and you had been we were transitioning. We were in a place of transition. We had pastored a church for several years, 20-something years. Yeah. And we were transitioning, and we were trying to find our place. You were really trying to find your place, and your young sons were saying, you need to go. You need to do a podcast. You need to do media. This is the direction you need to go. And in that, we were really kind of rediscovering ourselves, weren't we, as ministers?
We were finding what we oversee an association of churches and pastors and leaders.
And we've done that for years.
We've done that for a long time.
Even while we were pastoring.
But our personal role to the community, our personal giving back, we had done that as pastors for 20 years, and that was gone. And yes, while we pastor pastors, so we still had that.
Right.
Our own just individual role to people in general, to the church or to the Christian community was having to be reset and refigured out.
Yeah, so we presented this to you, and the initial response was, oh, that sounds great and wonderful. But then when you asked for details, how is this going to happen, and we couldn't give you answers, we just had a family meltdown, we kind of fall fault, and it was hard. But then
Dream Stories was born.
It was, but here's what happened. We didn't do it. We didn't do a podcast then and there.
No. It was
You
6 months later.
I think you did a quick little fireside thing or something.
I started doing some fireside chat type videos on the Power of Zero. I remember doing that one.
Yeah.
Videos on a vision I'd had about a fire spreading across the country and some things. I did just some little quick prophetic type videos which nobody watched.
I was going to say,
which is probably a good thing, but they're still out there on YouTube.
Oh yeah, I remember that video. Okay, no, I don't remember that. But
maybe I should take them down from YouTube.
I do remember that you did them. That's what I did.
The content was not bad of what I was talking about. It was just very, we didn't know what we were doing.
Okay, so anyway, and then we within that month, you had come home from a trip, and then within a month we had moved. And so we had moved, and then we were at Bainbridge, and at Bainbridge we did our first. We were just sitting around the kitchen table one day, and we were trying to say, I think Noah bought a mic or something, and you bought a mic, and we said, okay, here we go. We set up a card table in our master bedroom because we didn't have a lot of room, and we all sat around and did a quick little 2-minute podcast for a contest or something.
We did it for a contest. It
Did
was
we win?
a Rode audio company that does microphones and audio-visual equipment.
Yeah.
Did a podcast contest, and you had to do a 2-minute introduction. And that 2-minute contest entry actually became our sort of teaser intro to podcasting, and we didn't win anything, by the way.
Well, here we are.
But, you know.
How long ago was that? That was
3.5 years ago.
I think that was beginning of 2018.
Yeah,
now, I don't know when it actually got posted the first time.
It was about 3.5 years ago. We started the
process.
Do you realize
we're kind of wrapping this up at 3 years?
Yeah, really, at 3 years, the 3 year mark. Now, when wrapping up is qualified
hold on to
there.
That.
So
hold on to that,
I just let people worry about it for a few more minutes, because we'll keep them all the way to the end of this podcast, even some of the people who leave early.
I don't even know that. Do you like us? I don't even know. Do you enjoy watching, listening? I've been surprised every once in a while somebody would say, like my sister-in-law Rhonda, she goes, "I watch all the time." I was like, "You do?" And she goes, "Oh yeah." I was like, "Okay, I had no idea."
We actually have a few hundred listeners.
Okay.
Not always all at the same time, and not always on a single platform, but across
name some of them.
Name some of the platforms.
Yeah, can we?
Across YouTube, across Spotify, across the Whooshka platform that our podcast is actually hosted on.
They can only watch it on YouTube, though,
They can only watch it on YouTube right now. We're trying to rearrange, and one of the reasons we're shifting some things is to get into a position where we may be able to make some of the video available through the other podcasting sources.
Okay.
So, but anyway, we're on several of those things across our Facebook audio visual, our YouTube platform, and our Whooshka platform that feeds out to all the different podcasting platforms. I haven't counted recently, but we were probably 200 or 300 people that listen in, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Over time, more people listen to those episodes. I think our largest individual podcast was 800 or 900 listens from unique listeners.
Right.
But on a given week, we have a couple of hundred people listening. So.
Well, you know, the thing that blows my mind sometimes is we get a little bit of feedback sometimes. Like, we can go on to certain websites to see how our podcast is doing. Right. It'll say, where did you go up in the rankings? Where did you go down? It just blows my mind sometimes, you know, seeing that people listen to us in Singapore, Hong Kong, Egypt, you know, Africa. A lot of different countries in Africa are listening in, and we just want to say thank you. You know, I mean, we don't do this for ourselves. I mean, we don't make money with this. We don't.
No, the truth is, just to be honest with everybody out there, the truth is we usually have a major fight. When I say fight, a blow up, disagreement right before we start a podcast.
We didn't today.
We did. No, everything went great today.
The first time.
But we usually have that because I think it's not for us. It is something to give away, and that's there's a level of hardship with that. And if you want to know on podcasting platforms that are tracked, of our sources that are tracked, we are in the spirituality category of podcasting. So if you take Apple's podcast categories, our podcast is listed in the spirituality category, generally, not Christian, but general spirituality. And in a number of countries, some that if I named you would find very interesting, because spirituality is very different in those countries.
Yeah.
In a number of countries, we stay consistently in the top 100 spirituality podcasts in the country.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
I mean, we don't do it for ourselves. And one of the things about podcasts is you have to imagine trying to come up with content every week on dreams. I mean, it's not an easy thing. I'm sure some of y'all have thought, my God, here goes Lisa again with one of her dreams. Because sometimes we are struggling to find content, or we've had a very busy life in that moment and just trying to prepare for that. Yeah, so it's been a labor of love, but it's been, at times it's been like, oh, I got to go record another podcast. I got to think of what are we going to do it on this time?
Well, and I don't know if I would call it struggling with content as much as it is trying to make every episode unique.
Okay, that's fair.
And there's lots of content, but so many times we've already covered the topic that a new dream comes up about. Right. But it's a warning dream. But we've talked about warning dreams 5 times. It's a dream with a deceased person in it. We've talked about dreams with deceased people in them, 3 times.
Right.
And so wanting to stay fresh for you guys can sometimes be challenging.
Right.
we're always hearing and receiving. Our forum is always full of new dreams we can talk about. Right. And we can learn things from each of those dreams. Right. But many times you learn, as you keep going, you learn a new little tidbit.
Right.
And that doesn't fill a podcast episode up.
That's right.
So,
and sometimes we've actually had several topics within one episode that help us fill the content. And we don't, sometimes it just happens, it just, an amazing podcast will come forth and it was like, oh, that was really good. But other people may not think so as much, Yeah. But we've struggled, haven't we, through equipment. Again, I've said we don't really make money off this, and I'm not trying to harp on that, but I want people to know we would love to have a little bit better of a podcast. I've been watching several podcasts, how they're produced. We've purchased 4K cameras, stuff like that has helped. But it, there's other aspects to it. You got to have someone to edit it. When a cat jumps on your back because it was left in the studio and its claws are in your back, you've got to have someone to watch a whole hour, a whole 30-minute episode, which could
pull that part out
and edit, put things together. We don't do a lot of editing. We're pretty much raw.
We do cut some things. Yeah. And at times we go back to enhance audio. We've had a few episodes over the last few weeks that the audio wasn't as good because our editor was struggling with. He does this volunteer. Yeah, he our son who does this kind of work full time. He's a consultant and full time audiovisual guy. With his own company, doesn't get paid for this, and
let me just say this: if you're thinking, "Oh my goodness, if this is what he does for a living, some of these look pretty rough," it's because we do this ourselves. He doesn't stay in here with us.
He sets us up, turns it on,
and then sometimes when he leaves, we do something to the camera. It gets out of focus,
or the soundboard,
or the autofocus goes, or the soundboard's not working right.
Yeah, I don't want anybody to think the quality issues have to do with him. They have to do with the fact that we don't pay him to stay in here.
Exactly.
He does a really good job on the stuff he gets paid
He's really
for.
good at it. So thank you, Noah. Thank you for your service all these years. We love you and appreciate what you've done.
But as we shift, we're going to be talking to you more about supporting the podcast because we do want to pay the production and editing team. We need some more equipment. We actually need another camera. I don't know if you guys realize the cameras we use are about $4,000 a piece. They're not cheap cameras. We can make some adjustments to that, and some lower end cameras are available now that didn't used to be.
Right. Look, we're not planning on getting rich off this podcast or anything, but we would like to.
And we use the equipment for other things too. That's not. It's not fair to say it's just a podcast. We use the equipment for our Bible college. We have a Bible college called Patria Bible College.
Okay, well let's be
fair. That's online. We use the equipment for that.
Actually, I don't know that we've purchased anything on behalf of from resources from the podcast. The podcast is borrowing from the ministry.
Our overall ministry covers all those
honestly,
equipment costs.
Yeah, so if you love what we do and you feel led to support us financially, do that. We appreciate that.
And people say, how do we do that? Because we don't have donate buttons anymore.
Yeah, we don't.
Do we? I don't think we do. I don't know. Maybe we do.
Look for that in the future.
You can go to the current website, mydreamstories.com, and donate there. So,
and as our listeners increase, well, first of all, I'd love for you to share it. I mean, a couple of things I would like to ask people to do is to review us. Put wherever you're listening, whatever platform you're listening on, put a review on there. That will really increase our listeners. Our heart is to help people understand how God can speak to them, not just through dreams now. So as we move forward in the future for the stuff that we're going to be doing, again, you may see a little bit of change in our setup. It may be similar. We don't know yet. We're just trying to.
And we'll take a few minutes at the end to tell you what's going on. Yeah. And even if we have to break from what we're talking about and carry over to a second episode. Yeah. Because I wanted us to just wrap up with a real foundation of what we're doing.
Are we at the end already?
No. We've got 15 minutes or so left.
I wasn't done.
Okay, go ahead. Finish.
I said I wanted them to do a couple of things. Okay. One is consider supporting us financially. If you feel like it's been something that has
been valuable,
touched you, if you've gotten pleasure from it, I mean, thank you for listening, but consider supporting us. The other thing is do the review. And the reviews will help our listeners. And actually 3 things. Like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff.
Like, share, and subscribe.
I'm going to ask, would you be willing to share with maybe 5 of your friends? are 5 people you think would enjoy it. And then we may increase our listeners that way. And one of the things that may come in the future is they may see advertisements. So that's something we need to talk about too. So
yeah, and I don't think that'll be something that'll interrupt the podcast. The way that's done is pretty subtle. The choices we make. We're not going to be sticking up a 10-minute ad you've got to watch in the front side to be able to see the podcast or to listen to it, right? But you could get some 30-second breaks and things like that. Yeah. So, and one of the things that I wanted us to do, and I want us to talk about it for just a minute before we go into what's coming, is what we're doing is not new. We feel like we've broken ground, and a lot of you guys who listen to us feel like, well, nobody's ever talked about this stuff to us before. And we get this impression that dream interpretation and understanding our dreams is a new way that God has begun to talk. And the truth is, it's really ancient. It's not new at all.
No.
It's something that we lost and we're rediscovering, maybe the way I would put it.
Oh, my goodness. And what an appropriate time. We're recording 4 days away from Christmas.
Yeah.
And what happened at Christmas? We say Christmas, but what was surrounding...
What does Christmas celebrate for the Christian?
We're born-again believers, and we understand that not everyone who listens to our podcast is born again, and we welcome those who are not born again. That is okay.
Sure.
We want...
Well, God still wants to talk
He wants to talk to all of His creation. So, that being said, but for us, it's very... it's a very, very important part of our testimony of who God is and who we believe is the Messiah. And so our Messiah his birth was surrounded by dreams and
it's not just his birth, his whole life is
and
surrounded
unusual experiences, the kings coming and following a star. That's weird stuff,
That's part of the way God was speaking through the heavens.
Yes.
Pretty amazing concept there.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But
it has been around for a long, long time.
But if it weren't for a dream, first of all, Mary might never have survived. That's one thing. Jesus would not have lived past his 3rd birthday if it wasn't for a dream.
Right.
The Magi or the wise men or the kings who came to visit Jesus sometime after his birth, he would have gotten killed pretty quick because they were supposed to go back and tell Herod where he lived. They had a dream and didn't go back that way. And at the end of his life, the way God confirmed that he was a spotless sacrifice, that he was the Lamb of God being sacrificed, there was no blame in him, was actually through a dream that God gave to Pilate's wife. And it caused Pilate, we don't know what the dream was, but it was a dream that took place. And even though we don't know what it was a sufficient dream that it troubled Pilate so much, he washed his hands and said, I'm having nothing to do with the death of an innocent man.
Right.
You guys can do what you will. You pick, you choose, but I'm clean of it. This is your choice if he's crucified.
Right.
That's how, and so Pilate, the authority responsible, even if he didn't want to be, for Jesus' death, declares him innocent even though he's crucified.
Yeah.
That's pretty significant.
Yeah, so dreams have been around for a long, long time. Even prior to that. I mean, Moses, there's so many things where his wife, Abraham, sorry. Abraham. His wife, was in the king's palace. She was married, and Abraham was afraid to say anything and for fear of getting killed. And then that leader, the king at the time, said he had a dream. You have a married woman in your, your house. You need to give her back to her husband, Well, so this is not just just from the birth of Christ, but
no. And the first recorded dream goes all the way back to where Abraham dreamed of the 300-year captivity of the children of Israel in Egypt.
Yeah,
and that they would be in bondage for 300 years. He had a dream about that. That's the first. Some of Job's issues could have been prior to that.
Yeah.
But the first clearly historically, biblically historically dateable in a way was Abraham, and that's pretty early in. Then we see, obviously everybody knows Joseph and Daniel and whatnot, but it doesn't just stop in the Bible,
right?
Really, honestly, church leaders throughout history have put emphasis on dreams. It's really only been in modern times, and it's been predominantly in the modern age of the New Age, where there was a lot among Christian circles. There was a lot of view that, well, dreams are bad because they're being embraced by Eastern cultures and they're being embraced by New Age cultures. That doesn't make dreams bad just because a different people group values them.
Well, people would think they were bad because maybe you dreamed about strange things that would be, for Christians or a church, would be forbidden, or things they didn't understand, that they were metaphorical, not always what they are seen
we
as.
talked about dreams where people are naked. For a Christian, particularly during the, say, 17 and 1800s, for a Christian to dream about nakedness was viewed as, this horrible thing. And there was not an understanding of the metaphor. And so you saw not just dreams, but communication with God cut back over the years. But, we talked about the Bible examples. It didn't end with the New Testament, the writing of the New Testament. Polycarp, who was a disciple of John, he's one of the first disciples of a disciple, of one of the 12.
Okay.
Who went on to write extensively and things like that. He lived during the first century after the New Testament era. I think he died about 155 AD or something like that. And Polycarp actually dreamed that he was going to be martyred, and he was. He was martyred in Rome, and he was able to endure that martyrdom because he'd had a dream. There's actually a book called The Martyrdom of Polycarp that talks about all that.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it?
And he basically said it was that one was big, that he dreamed of his martyrdom, but in his writings he actually said it's because of how did he say it? It's because of dreams and visions that many have come basically to their faith in Christ, to find their abode in Christ because of dreams and visions. Now that's a post-New Testament, first century Christian leader who's saying that. And so it didn't just disappear with the New Testament. It didn't just go away.
Right.
And it kept going. I actually wrote down some of them. There's this long list of people who Justin Martyr, who was a theologian in the 2nd century. Right. He talked about the positive spiritual effects of dreams. And then we've got people like Irenaeus, who was the bishop of Gaul. Right. And he lived in the 3rd century or died around the start of the 3rd century. Tertullian, a 3rd century theologian, talked about dreams. We just keep seeing this list of people who really believed that dreams were of valued importance. And we just keep going down the list. Origen and Dionysius and St. Augustine. These will be names that not everybody knows.
Exactly.
Cyrenius, St. Jerome, and then a name a lot of people do remember all the way down to the 13th century is Thomas Aquinas.
Yeah.
And he's actually remembered for his appropriating some of Aristotle's views that if you can't see, hear, feel, taste, or smell something, it's not real. He was a huge believer in dreams. He wasn't saying the supernatural's not real. He was talking about, but what he said led to about the 13th century. We start losing Western minds, start losing interest. Eastern minds didn't quit. The Hebrew people, the Israel, the Jewish community didn't lose the value of dreams. It was the Western world that lost it, starting in around the 13th century. Earlier than that, a little bit because of Aristotle for the general Western world, but the Western church really was sparked in that way by Thomas Aquinas. Yeah. And what's cool, and I'll stop because I know you got some things to say, but what's cool about Thomas Aquinas is he was such a theologian there's this concept of theology and of what we call systematic theology. There's a great a book we have out today. My mind's just drawing a complete blank on the author, Grudem. Wayne Grudem wrote a book called Systematic Theology. He's a current modern theologian. It's a big, thick book that just goes through every basic belief structure of the Christian community. But the original guy to write in that vein was Thomas Aquinas. And he wrote a book called Summa Theologica, and it was, it was 21 volumes when he quit writing.
Summa Theologica would be the
summary of sum of theology, right? He was writing. He had written. He was not finished when he quit. He had 21 volumes.
Right.
He goes to sleep one night, has a dream. Now, this is the guy who agreed with Aristotle. If you can't see, hear, feel, taste, or smell it, it's not real. He goes to sleep one night, has a dream, gets up the next morning and says, what has been revealed to me is of such great value that pen and paper could never contain it, basically. I'm not quoting him exactly.
And he quit writing.
And he quit writing. He did not finish his life's work because he said everything else has little value. What I was writing doesn't even mean anything because of what I saw in this dream and what was spiritually revealed to me having such significance that I can't even fully write it down.
Yeah. You know, I didn't think you were going on too long. Here's what I think. I think what we're doing is we're really setting us up for what's coming.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is that God is not contained just in the idea of dreams, but of visions, of Him just speaking to us. I had a dream last night. Okay, so can I just talk real quick?
Yeah.
Last night, I'm not going to tell the dream. So calm down. Okay.
It was a long dream. So
it was a very long dream. But before, I had a very interesting and engaging conversation with one of my sons last night, just about future for him and what he loves and is passionate about. It just really blessed me. So I'm going to bed, and I thought, I'm going to take a melatonin so I can sleep good. And I felt like God spoke to me in my spirit and said, don't do that. That's what I was hearing in my spirit. And how God speaks to you and how He speaks to me may be different. He said, because you'll dream better if you don't take it. Michael, did I not have the most epic dream? The dream spoke to me about my children, and it was just beautiful. And spoke to me about how I need to be and corrective in some ways. So I love it. God speaks to us. Are we listening to Him?
Yeah.
I'm tearing up.
It's good. It's really good. And I'll tell you what, we're not even going to change wardrobe or anything. We're going to carry over to one more episode. We're going to have that episode between Christmas and New Year that we didn't plan on.
Okay.
And I want to pause us here because I want us to move to...
You've got something to go and do today, so I know this is important to you now.
I know. I want to pause us here because I want us to continue. We talked about dreams beginning to fade at the 12th or 13th century, but they never went away. And we have a history, a modern history of dreams being significantly valuable, and a modern history of why some people rejected dreams, not just the New Age, but the psychological world of how dreams should be interpreted that began to turn the church off to dreams and dream interpretation. I don't want us to cover those topics. So let's take and give just a part of the reveal for where we're going. We won't talk about all that's going to happen with the new podcast.
Okay,
but let's give people a view of the new logo.
Okay.
And let's give them our new name so they can be preparing for it. We'll have a website starting to come up, maybe up by the time you see part 2 of this.
Okay.
And a new YouTube channel. We're going to be starting fresh, so people have to find us again.
Okay.
So let's give them that name.
Okay.
So they can be preparing for the shift. All right. So what we're going to do is become Conversations with the Creator. And I hopefully my son will put that up where it can be seen. It's on the screen here with us now, the new logo and things. And I mentioned in some past episodes, we have a wonderful listener in Spain who has, worked tirelessly. We were supposed to be able to start by like next week with the new stuff, and she was ready. I slowed her down. I didn't get some things to her because of breaking my back and then some things that happened in our ministry. I just sent her an email today and said, I feel so bad. I feel like I've dishonored all the hard work you've done because now I'm having to push back a launch because of things that have happened. But we're going to become Conversations with the Creator. You'll have to start looking for us under that name the second week in January.
Yeah. And
we'll remind you that again next episode. We'll still be Dream Stories next week, but that'll be the last one we thought this would be, but we're going to go on. And we'll remind you more about that and tell you more about that.
And sometimes as we're talking, things just happen. So it may be that we still skip a week in that. I don't know how that works. It could be the 31st or whatever.
We'll probably be the second or third week of January. We're going to, and we may change days. So just keep the eyes out for it. We'll let you know. Yeah. We'll post some things each week on the Dream Stories sites and on the Dream Stories YouTube and all that kind of stuff. Just reminding you, look for us on and giving you all the details. Yeah. We'll put those up just to keep you reminded.
Yes.
But lots of new things. I think our Facebook page is going to stay the same and the name just change.
Okay.
But we'll see how that works. Okay. So it's good.
Good.
And we're out of time today.
Yeah.
So we are going to carry over to that second episode.
Okay.
And have fun. So till next time, keep dreaming.